Hi, my name is Christian Dye. Thank you for showing interest in my overseas project. I will try to explain it to the best of my ability over here. I've been taking teams to overseas for the last 15 years. This is me in Guatemala. Um, I've been going to Central America for about 15 years. I've taken over 5 teams there. They were typically made up of my ex-graduated students, and by graduated, I mean they probably already graduated from university. I have taken teachers in the past. I like taking smaller teams. This was one of my larger teams that I took to Central America. Um, but now the trips were building projects, a lot of it, working with children. Um, but now I have shifted my focus to the Philippines. I wanted to take a smaller team, so I took some ex-Guatemala volunteers of mine this last summer, and we became Philippines Team 1. I'm now looking at Team 2 and Team 3. I'm hoping to go in the summer, but it will probably be the first couple of weeks in July. That's typically how my teams run. They have the option to stay longer. So the length of time really is up to the volunteer. Usually we go for at least 2 weeks, though. Sometimes volunteers want to stay as long as 2 months. I'm pretty flexible depending on how long they want to volunteer and if they want to travel afterwards. So to tell you a little bit about the projects over here, we went this last summer, and over the time we were there, I went to visit 14 different projects in different areas, visiting different schools, everything from street kids to going inside the prisons to going to feeding centers, going to orphanages. I have many contacts over there, so I was going around quite a bit. So now the projects have really narrowed down to just a few. The ones that I know that I want to continue to support, the first one is St. Martin de Porres. It's the school for abandoned street kids. There's boys and girls. The school, it provides them housing, food, shelter, as well as teachers. The reason why I picked this project is because they're completely overwhelmed. They have too few teachers and too many students, and these students, of course, don't have parents. Their education is sporadic, very, very, very small education. It's an advantage, actually, if you don't speak the Filipino language of Tagalog. The kids need more exposure to English. They need to improve their English in order to get a better education one day, since everyone in the Philippines with an education can speak English. So that over there is, I felt, was one great need. We were able to tutor them. We were able to support them. We were able to give sort of, I guess, what you would call after school programs for them, dancing, soccer, basketball, and like any other kids, they needed role models. They needed, coaches. They needed people who cared about them outside of the classroom. Most of them hate school because they're terrible at it. Um, the school is run by priests and nuns. It's a Catholic organization, but my volunteers were not Catholic. I am Catholic, but they were not. The kids are Catholics as well. Philippines is predominantly a Catholic country, much like Central America. So it's not a requirement that my volunteers be Catholic. I've taken Muslims. I've taken, people of different faiths. But what is necessary is, of course, is respect and tolerance and respect for the people and the organizations around them. So the teaching, I felt we were most effective in small groups, and then we rotated around. This is us doing math. We also rotated around for English. We played games with them mostly for the English, but when it came down to the math, we sort of segregated them into different pockets based on ability. So there were some classrooms that we had access to. But it was very hot there. So depending on the heat. So that's another challenge of the trip. The Philippines is typically between 30 and 35 degrees and humid. So the heat, there's mosquitoes. The area that we're in, there was no dengue, malaria, or Zika, but in other parts of the Philippines, it does exist if you're going to travel around there. This is one of the after-school things we did. We were teaching a dance class. One of my volunteers was experienced in dance, and it was something we brought, and they absolutely loved it. The girls absolutely loved it. They had never even seen ballet, I don't think, in their entire lives, and they were learning that and hip hop and jazz. And we brought an iPhone. If we were to come back, we would definitely bring a speaker with us. They had one, but it wasn't very good. We interacted with them constantly. We played games with them. They wanted to hear our stories. They could understand English for the most part, but their spoken wasn't the greatest. So communication was tricky at times, but most of them actually could understand. The girls lived, I guess you might call it, on campus. They lived in different housing. The volunteers would live among them. They're not among them, but on the same site. We had our own separate section where we lived, which was locked at night, so it was quite safe. This is us. I think we were doing math or English here. We got to be quite close with these kids, so that's why we are hoping to return. We're essentially, attempting to teach them. Same as sort of a school day. There's, 3 or 4 hours of teaching, and then sort of run some programs with them, what you might call after school. That's kind of the vision that I have. I was doing some Pro D with the teachers. As you could tell, I think there are 6 teachers here, and I think the school, there must be in the neighborhood of maybe 150 kids around that. So they were not, I felt not very well equipped to deal with these types of students over here. So I think any support is going to help, any help at all for these students. So here I have a little video just to show you what we were doing on the dance side. So it was fun. The kids had a great time. So St. Martin is one of the locations that we will go back to and support. The other one that we visited as well was Ephesus. This was the home for the sexually abused girls. And some of their hair is quite short because they did have a lice issue at one point. So some of them kind of look like boys, but they're all girls here. There's 30 of them, 30 beds, 30 girls. It is an amazing place. It's a nice, safe home for these girls that were either abused by someone in their home or somewhere else. And so they live there. They're not up for adoption or anything of that sort. They're going to live there until they're old enough to leave. There are 2 girls that have been part of the school, I think, for 8 or 9 years, and now they are kind of the house moms. They're in college. They're trying to get an education themselves. So there's no funding for Ephesus. There's also no funding for St. Martin de Porres. They rely on donations, but they don't actually fundraise. People that they know will give them money. So this is one of the places that I will return to. Their great need is similar. There's one man who runs Ephesus, and he found a calling to help to build the house, to help these girls, to give them a safe place to live, provide them with schooling. So the girls go to school in a local area. They'll come home from school, but it'd be great if they came home and there was a support system, people that could help them with their studies, people that can, maybe do an after school thing with them. They live in the city. Ephesus is in the countryside. St. Martin is in the countryside, but Ephesus is actually in the city. The other awesome thing about Ephesus is that they actually have a program, a sewing program where the girls are are doing a little bit of sewing, and there's a company that actually buys what they sew. It's these rags that is used for heavy machinery. So they don't have to be very good at sewing. But one of the things I wanted to bring for both schools is actually sewing machines, because the girls are very interested in sewing. I think it's a fantastic life skill for everyone to have. The other thing I would love to do is that they're building they're building a housing structure for cooking. So, if they could learn to cook, if they could learn to sew, again, very, very basic skills, where in the Philippines, third world country, having those two skill sets actually makes you quite employable, to be able to work. So, one of the things I wanted to do as well is if there was any funding. I think Ephesus probably needs it the most. They're probably the one who's most tight for money. I know they had a leaky roof when I was there, and they were hoping to get that fixed at some point. Getting more beds would mean they can house more girls. So he also says that they have a psychologist come in a couple times a month, but it's expensive. So some months they can't afford the psychologist, but these girls all, of course, need to heal. They need support, and they need counseling. But unfortunately, again, third world country, they don't have the government does not provide that type of funding, but the girls do need it. So they were very loving girls. They were fantastic. We had a great time with them, and they're like any other girls. They joke around, they gossip, they pal around with each other, but they really are their only family. None of these girls will go back to their original homes. They will stay at Ephesus, and so this is one of the places that I would love to bring somebody who maybe has experience with abuse, someone who can also help them with their studies. Here is a little video of them dancing for us. They love to dance. They have all these different routines that they did for us. So they were really cute. They did that performance for us, and they all gave us a big hug over here. Some other projects some side projects that we could possibly get involved with in Cebu, which is on a different island. There was a daycare for basically families who could not afford a daycare. It was their version of, I guess, a government program, even though the government wasn't funding it. So the daycare was fun. We were working with the little kids, and they all had families. They just didn't have families that could afford any form of schooling or daycare or things of that sort. There was a feeding center, which was great because it was for children that did not have enough for one meal per day. So it was a feeding center that basically provided one meal per day. It was not for adults; it was for children. That the moms would bring the kids there, and the kids were able to eat food. So we helped to volunteer there, just try to understand it a bit more. The feeding center is a wonderful place, just because the families in that community who cannot afford to feed their kids, and there were many, they knew that their kids would at least get one meal per day. We were at a school rehabilitating, sort of, I guess you might call them, juveniles who had committed crimes, just so that we could support their healing, because most of them were also victims of abuse themselves, and now they were rehabilitating into society. We took a look at the types of programs. The American Peace Corps was one of the volunteers running the projects over here, so we got to meet and work with them for a little bit. So we got very close with the kids. It's hard not to get close to the kids when you're working with them over an extended period of time. Types of volunteers I'm looking for: 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months. Depends on your level of commitment. Depends on what you're interested in getting involved in over here. But that over there is, I guess, a 360-degree view of what I'm doing, what I'm looking for, just a time frame. The types of people I'm looking for, I say all of my teams have been people I've known before. They've always been either teachers I've known or students that I've known. These projects are different because I'm going to need a lot more help. I purposely think that I would like to bring people with education background just because there is quite a big need over there and some expertise would be good. But unfortunately, because I don't know many, my volunteers have usually been people that I've known. And now that I'm looking outside of that realm, I'm unfortunately going to have to figure out some sort of a vetting system or a filter system. So I apologize for the formalities over here. But if you are interested, then I recommend that you fill out the application questionnaire that I'm giving, just so that I can help to understand, who you are, what you want to do. Unfortunately, I don't have the time to meet with everyone individually. There's too many people that are interested. So what I would like to do is just to try to get to know you a little bit better, see if you sort of fit. And this is a way of you just understanding the projects a little bit more over here. It's a great time, to be honest. If you could handle the heat and the mosquitoes and kind of the third world environment, then it's a lot of fun. My teams and I always have an enormous amount of fun on these trips over here. So if you've made it this far and you're still interested, I thought I would end off with a couple of things that I videoed when I was in the Philippines of me and my volunteers. So like I said, if you're interested, email me back, letting me know a little bit more about yourself with the Word document that I'm sending over, and my email should have a little bit more information on the semantics of everything. Hi, my name is Christian Dai. I am just finishing my trip in the Philippines, where I have been visiting various different projects. I now intend to return to the Philippines with several more teams. In particular, I will be supporting projects involving teaching street children, as well as supporting the healing and the teaching for a school for the sexually abused girls, and also supporting a vocational center for the poor, allowing a free education in order to get kids off of the street and to teach them a technical trade. In particular, I'll be recruiting and training teachers and volunteers. The types of teachers I'm looking for are ones with experience in home economics, sewing, cooking, arts, anyone with experience in coaching, perhaps basketball, volleyball, soccer, people who could run programs such as dance classes or art classes or martial arts. The reason for this is in helping to instill discipline as well as character formation and self-confidence, which is something that I've identified is a great need among the street children here. The school has already been set up. They have housing. They have food. I'm looking for people to help support that next level, that they have been abandoned. They have no parents. Some of them have been sexually abused, and now I'm looking to support the formation of their educational growth before they reach age where they're have to leave the school. So other teachers I would like to bring are those with counseling background, people who have dealt with abuse. I would also like to bring back people, not only teachers, but people who have university degrees, or people who might still be in university but are looking to enter into these fields. Essentially, everyone will help with English and math. Typically, I would like people to help in English and math. Here, their opportunities to get jobs are much better if they can speak English, and the majority of them cannot speak English, but they can understand English because the Philippines does have quite a large English-speaking population. As well, I would have volunteers work on other projects that I've identified here, such as feeding of the malnutrition children and the and any after-school type of program where you may have experience in. I would love to bring people who maybe have experience in dance therapy, music therapy, art therapy, to support their healing as well. There is no formal organization behind this. I'm just one man. I've led 5 teams to Central America in the past successfully, and now I've shifted my project here to the Philippines. All of my volunteers pay their own way. I would organize and train them in Canada. So the structure over here is very, very simple. There would, of course, be a vetting process and a placement process. The teams I intend to bring are actually quite small teams. I'm looking for the right person, not the first person. And if you would like to get involved by being a team member, then I encourage you to connect with me. If you would like to be involved by supporting from Canada, there would be many areas that you could help to support this in terms of resources, organization, and things of that sort. This is a beautiful country, and the needs here are great. In a very short amount of time, my team and I, during the summer, have been able to visit numerous projects and have been able to establish our contacts over here, as well as to determine housing and location. So it will be quite organized, probably a 5-day work week. And I will take care of all the logistics. If you think that you might want to get involved, then I do encourage you to get in touch, and it would be a worthwhile adventure for you and a great experience that you could bring back to Canada as well. The mission of the trip is based off of the idea that we are not coming here to solve their problems. We are coming here to support their solutions. The people of the Philippines can solve their own problems, but they do need a lot of help. Definition of a solidarity worker is someone who works with the people, but we don't stand in front of them, we don't stand behind them, we walk beside them, but we let them lead the way. If you think that this is something you might be interested in, then by all means, please get in touch. Hi, my name is Christian Duck.
Hi, I'm Oksana. I'm part of Christian's Philippines Team 1, and back home I'm about to start my teaching program. So while I've been here in the Philippines, I've been taking some time to teach at-risk youth through St. Martin's de Porres. And after spending some time with them, I've realized that they have a roof over their head and they have food in their stomachs. They just need that last bit of help to make them more successful in their future, giving them applicable skills, interview skills, and better English, better math to help them stay off the street and find success in their futures.
Hi, my name is Skylar. I'm 24 years old. I'm a civil engineer back home in Canada, and I'm here with Christian and Team 1 in the Philippines. And so far, as we've been to a couple locations now throughout the Philippines, it's been a very eye-opening experience. I went with Christian to Guatemala in 2014, as you might see on my shirt here, and it was life-changing. And so the trip here was a little bit different. We've seen so much, and there is a lot of good structure that we've seen, but there is still a lot of need. The kids could really benefit from having outside foreigners coming in to seeing how they can help out with their current system. The teachers that are here could also use the help and the training to make their programs better. And I think that it's not only an opportunity for other teachers, but other people who have other skills and gifts like dance and things like that to be able to help out. Yeah, so I've really enjoyed the time here, and I encourage anyone with a professional background, doesn't have to be teaching, to reach out to Chris to get on one of these teams. And what's really made an impact for me, from everything I've seen, I think Ephesus House, where they help out sexually abused girls, has made a lasting impact. These girls have so little, yet they perform for us. They have smiles on their faces, and it really shows. It really gives you a humbling experience and adds perspective on what's really important in life.